What is up, Bruins fans, and welcome back to the Locked On Boston Bruins podcast. I'm your host, Ian McLaren, and today we're asking whether or not Charlie McAvoy is close to signing a contract extension with the Boston Bruins. Depends on who you ask. Cam Neely, president of the team, seemed a bit more hopeful than Don Sweeney yesterday, but we're going to get into what both had to say, as well as their expectations for the upcoming season on today's podcast. So let's get into it, shall we?
You're Locked On Bruins, your daily podcast on the Boston Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, it is Thursday, October 14th. We're still 2 days away from the Boston Bruins season opener, unfortunately, but there's lots to talk about as both President Cam Neely and General Manager Don Sweeney met with the media on Wednesday, and I'm going to break down what they had to say about Charlie McAvoy and others. But first, I want to thank you for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. We're free and available on all podcast platforms. So whether you're an Apple person, Spotify, Stitcher, Google, Pocket Casts is what I use for my Android phone. Please do smash that subscribe button. Not too hard, or else you'll hear from the Department of Podcast Safety. Each new episode will be automatically added to your feed for you to download, listen, and enjoy. If you're watching this video, you'll know that we are also available on YouTube, and you can get a look into my living room and dining room every day. We are on Twitter at Locked NHL Bruins, as well as Instagram with the same handle. And you can see there on the bottom of the screen, my Twitter handle is at Ian C. McLaren. You can find me there on Instagram as well. And I've got a bunch of dad jokes, hockey tweets, and all the latest on the Boston Bruins up there as well. I hope you are all having a great week. It is Thursday, still a couple days away from the Boston Bruins season opener. I'm going to be watching in Ottawa as I am set to travel later today to visit family, taking the three boys to Ottawa to visit my side of the family. My wife, unfortunately, has to stay behind to attend a funeral. Anyways, let's get into Charlie McAvoy and his next contract. He's entering the final season of a 3-year deal that he signed ahead of the 2019-20 season. He will make $7.3 million this season in actual cash, and then he is set to become a free agent at the end of this season, and everybody is hopeful that he will sign a contract soon. His current contract carries an annual cap hit of $4.9 million. Base salary in year one was $1.2 million. Base salary in year two was $2.7. Year three, $7.3, meaning his qualifying offer, would be substantial. Not his AAV, but what his base, it'll be based on his base salary for this year. But we all expect that number will be higher than 7.3. And Cam Neely said during his media availability that he hopes something gets done in the near future. He said Don and assistant manager Evan Gould have been working with Charlie's camp the last couple days. So my hopes are we'll see something here in short order. But you never know until it's signed on the dotted line. Neely added McAvoy has expressed a desire to remain in Boston for the long term, and the club would obviously like nothing more than to make that a reality. Neely said, quote, "I haven't heard any indication that Charlie wouldn't want to play here for his whole career. That's what we're looking towards, and hopefully we can get something done that gives him an opportunity to do just that. We'll see where it goes." Charlie, he's embraced Boston. He went to college here. He likes the city, loves the sports environment. We've seen him in recent days really getting into the Red Sox spirit. He loves the Bruins fan base. Certainly special when you actually step on the rink and on the ice there and you see a packed house, which we're going to get back to this season, thankfully. Haven't seen or heard anything from Charlie that gives Neely any reason why he wouldn't want to play here as long as possible. So very encouraging update there from Cam Neely. Charlie McAvoy entering this season is a Norris Trophy candidate at only age 23. He'll turn 24 on December 21st. He could be a finalist this year. Heck, he could even be a Norris Trophy winner this season, especially if he sticks on the top power play unit and piles up points while helping the team defensively as well. So to get that contract done now, before he potentially wins the trophy, could be beneficial for the Boston Bruins. Now, Don Sweeney, he came on the Zoom shortly after Cam Neely and said there's nothing imminent in terms of a contract extension for McAvoy, but he did echo Neely's sentiments that the Bruins' goal is to keep the blue liner in black and gold for as long as possible. Sweeney said, "We're hopeful. We continue to have talks periodically with different players. We would dearly like to have Charlie as part of the organization for a long period of time. Hopefully it's mutual. That's generally when deals come together. We think highly of him both as a player and a person. He's growing into a leadership role. He's been included in the leadership group. He'll be wearing an A this season on a rotating basis with David Pastrnak and Brandon Coyle. And hopefully that's an indication that Charlie's growing into the person, both as a player and a person that we all hope he would." Now, in terms of what the number will be, hopefully it'll be the max 8-year contract. I would expect it will come in around $9 million. Anything lower than that would be a gift from the hockey gods. And the Bruins, certainly hopeful that Charlie McAvoy will be signing an extension soon. And I'm very interested to see what that number is going to be. But clearly he is a massive part of the future of this team, if not, the most important part, arguably, since number one defensemen are so hard to come by. We've seen contracts given out to, I want to say, lesser defensemen than McAvoy that perhaps are overvaluing the players in terms of a Seth Jones or a Zach Werenski. But I think McAvoy and the Bruins will come to a fair number, and that will be mutually beneficial for both teams. I would hope that it would not be, combative, or that the two sides would be on much different pages, like Brady Tkachuk and the Ottawa Senators is the only restricted free agent left to sign as this new season begins. Before we get to what else Cam Neely and Don Sweeney had to say on Wednesday, a quick word about BetOnline, your number one spot for all pro and college football action this season. They also have you covered for hockey, the MLB playoffs, basketball, boxing, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games. They have a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, and they're your number one source for all your favorite sports and betting needs. Head to the website, use your mobile device, sign up today, and receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit by using promo code LOCKEDON. Bet online, where the game starts. Again, I want to thank you for making Locked On Boston Bruins your first listen every day. Very encouraging to see the listenership rising as a new season begins, and very excited to get actual games going so that we can talk about Boston's performance this season instead of just expectations. And speaking of expectations, Cam Neely was pretty clear that expectations are certainly high, and there's no reason to change that at this point in the team's trajectory and history. Despite losing David Krejci, despite some uncertainty surrounding Tuukka Rask, the Bruins believe there is every reason to think that they are Stanley Cup contenders. Don Sweeney said overall they're very pleased about the Bruins preseason, about the new additions to the team. They're relatively healthy, minus Curtis Lazar, who remains week to week with an upper body injury. Happy with the depth where guys have slotted in. They got to play games to see where guys are all going to come together and generate chemistry one way or another. One perhaps concern is the play of Linus Ullmark. But Cam Neely was pretty open, saying they expected him to have a bit of a slow start based on the fact that he's coming to a new city, new teammates, new system, and also the fact that he hasn't played since April. The Sabres were dreadful last season, no taste of the playoffs. And so some of these Bruins coming in are a bit fresher, having played longer into the year. Now, going back to Tuukka Rask and David Krejci for a moment, Neely reiterated the door is open for the return of both Krejci and Rask, should they be interested in coming back to Boston at some point this season. Tuukka is obviously going through his rehab process from off-season hip surgery. He's in the area. They'll see where his recovery takes him. They've both been told that the door is open and that if they do decide to try to come back, they'll see where it goes from there. It remains to be seen for both of them, really, whether Rask is healthy. And obviously, from David Krejci's perspective, the family situation was very important to him, rightfully so. And Neely said it really depends on where they're both at mentally and physically. I personally am not banking on David Krejci coming back at any point this season. He made a concerted decision to return home, to be with family. He's lighting up the Czech League at the moment. And, for him to come back, it would have to be early in the new year. So, he'd be spending perhaps half the year back in Boston. I don't know if he has an appetite to do that after making this decision. One other point of conversation was Jack Stanika, who was among the final cuts from Boston's training camp roster, along with forward Chris Wagner. But it was not based on his performance by any means. He was waiver exempt. And, the underlying thread is that was the reason why he was sent down. They didn't have to put Anton Bleed or Carson Kuhlman on waivers, something they, for perhaps whatever reason, were reluctant to do. Cam Neely said Jack had a strong preseason. They have high expectations for him moving forward, whether at some point this season or later in 2022. It's something the organization has looked at and said, okay, where are we going to be in a few years' time? We've got time to address it, but not a lot of time. And they certainly need to focus on the center position. When it comes to Patrice Bergeron, both Neely and Sweeney said that, they want him around as long as possible. He's going to see how he feels at the end of the year and make a decision there. We kind of already knew that. Again, no major concerns coming out of camp. Neely said they still maybe need to flush out what the bottom part of the lineup looks like. And that is the bottom 9, it seems like. Is Charlie Coyle going to be able to mesh well with Taylor Hall, Craig Smith? They've had one game, so they want to see a bit more there. And then, again, Ullmark kind of knew he'd have a slower camp than most. His last game was early April, and goalie coach Bob Essensa is working with him to get more reps in practice. So those were the key takeaways from the availabilities for both President Cam Neely and General Manager Don Sweeney on Wednesday. They are hopeful about the Bruins this season. They're certainly preparing for life after Patrice Bergeron in some ways. They drafted Brett Harrison. They are high on Jack Stanika. It could be a situation where they're going to have to address that by free agency or trade at some point to find their next number one center. But for the time being, the 2021-22 Boston Bruins, their initial roster is set, and they are comfortable with the decisions they made. Cam Neely said it would have been a mistake in their eyes to come back with the exact same group that failed to produce results in the playoff bubble and last season, not being able to get past the second round. And that was the reason why Nick Krejci and Andre Kasha weren't qualified, and Howla and Foligno were brought in. It's the reason why Sean Corrali wasn't re-signed, or Chris Wagner was placed on waivers. And so they're looking to freshen things up, especially in the bottom six. And they're also looking to stabilize the defense a bit with the addition of Derek Forbort, re-signing Mike Riley. I still think, I've said it many times on the podcast, that the right side is a bit of a concern to me, especially the bottom pair. I don't know if Connor Clifton can do the heavy lifting on the third pair for a complete 82-game season. And it could be a situation where we see a Jacobs Borrell come in, play on the right side, Brady Lyle perhaps promoted if he gets off to a good start in the AHL, or that would be an area where they will have to seek help via free agency. Before we get to some news and notes from around the NHL, a quick word about Rock Auto. They are the number one place to get all the car parts you need at discounted prices. There's an ever-increasing number of makes and models on the road, and it's almost impossible for your local chain auto parts store to stock all the parts you need, and at affordable prices at that. You can save time and money by using Rock Auto. They are a family-owned business, and they've been serving do-it-yourselfers online for over 20 years. Why choose to spend 30, 50, even 100% more for the same parts from a chain store or a car dealership? I have a Honda Odyssey in my driveway, for example, and a fuel pump from a chain store is about $353. I can get it for about $216 from Rock Auto. Their prices are always reliably low for every customer, and they have everything you could possibly need, from brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpeting. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto parts needs. Again, rockauto.com. Visit them right now. See all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their "How did you hear about us" box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Let's take a look at some news and notes from around the NHL. A few more games on the ice last night, and I was watching the Capitals Rangers game, not only to get a glimpse at TNT's very entertaining coverage. I tweeted that it was pretty cool to see Wayne Gretzky breaking down hockey. His segment with Charles Barkley was great. And I was but expecting to see some fireworks. There was a bit there, but the coolest part was watching Alexander Ovechkin score twice to surpass Hall of Famer Marcel Dion with 732 goals. He is now in sole possession of fifth on the all-time goal scoring leaders in the NHL. Very impressive. And, Wayne Gretzky's record is definitely in reach. And we'll see if he is able to catch him here in the next few years. I mentioned earlier the Bruins failing to get past the second round last season. The New York Islanders took them out, and a big reason for that was Ryan Pulock, and he has reportedly signed a $8 million contract worth $50 million with a full no-trade clause. He's a high-end, top-pairing two-way defenseman who's, paired with Scott Pelech, probably one of the best, if not the best, defensive pairing in the league, and both could be playing for Team Canada this season. So a nice little signing there. $5.75 million AAV. Oh, sorry, that's for Pelech. Pulock signed for $6.25 million. Same number that Nashville Predators defenseman Matthias Ekholm signed for. He was deep in trade rumors last season. The Bruins and their fans were clamoring after him reportedly, but he's staying in Nashville and will receive $6.25 million per season over the next 4. So not quite comparables for Charlie McAvoy, but hopefully they can get him done soon. Now, on the trade rumor front, Frank Saravelli advises keeping an eye on Vladimir Tarasenko start with the Blues. Both sides are playing nice and saying the right things after Tarasenko requested a trade in the offseason, but he still strongly desires a trade, according to Frank Saravelli. He's fully recovered from surgeries on his right shoulder, and part of the point of contention between the two sides is how those surgeries were handled. He signed for 2 more seasons at a $7.5 million cap hit. And if he gets off to a hot start, then it's possible that, a trade could come sooner than later. Still waiting for a Jack Eichel trade as well. I think that's pretty much it. Oh, wait, I wanted to mention about Dylan Strome, a player that I discussed yesterday, who is reportedly being floated by the Chicago Blackhawks. Charlie Remiliotis reports Blackhawks general manager Stan Bowman attempted to downplay trade rumors swirling around Strome. He struggled to find a regular spot among their forward lines and was a healthy scratch for their season opening loss last night to the Avalanche. It wouldn't be surprising if the Blackhawks try to give him a fresh start with another club. So even though Bowman is downplaying that, it certainly looks like he will be moved at some point, and I kind of hope so because I have him in a keeper cap league, and I don't want that $3 million sitting on the bench. Anyways, that is it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for making the podcast your first listen of the day. Please do subscribe on whatever platform you use for podcasts. Subscribe on the YouTube channel. It's encouraging to see those notifications coming in. And have a great Thursday. Be back tomorrow to finally preview Boston's season opening game on Saturday against the Dallas Stars. And that's it for today's episode of Locked On Boston Bruins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your favorite team every single day.